Hello and welcome back to Shutterdrives. I'm extremely thrilled and excited to let you know that we are going to start off a new series called as the Need for Speed. Of course, going by the love of our generation towards that iconic game, where we are going to focus on some cars which are actually curated for performance. And what better than the Porsche Taycan to start off with? Yes, I understand that this is an EV, but stay tuned till the end of the video to know more about this amazing car. Well, I understand that 70% of electricity in India is produced from burning coal, and that's the reason EVs might not exactly be environment friendly until we are dependent on renewable resources of energy like the windmill there. But that said, ladies and gentlemen, we have one of the most iconic EVs in the world in the form of Porsche Taycan. And let's take a quick tour of it in the form of 20 things you should know about this car before you decide to buy it. So talking about the variant lineup, you have the Taycan. This is the particular Taycan. You have the 4S in this, and of course the Taycan Turbo, which promises to be in a different league altogether. Hope to get our hands on it someday soon. Trust Porsche to have the best attention to detail. The key fob that you see here actually resembles the shape of the Taycan behind me. Yes, and in fact, Porsche has gone one step ahead and added a small illumination in the logo here, which looks very cool. Let's quickly check out the exteriors of the car. If looks could kill, I would be dead by now, because the Porsche Taycan is one of the most gorgeous looking cars out there in the world, and of course the most beautiful EV for sure. Let's get into the nitbits of this lovely car. First things first, long press this particular button and the front of the car actually opens, the front trunk, where you can store a couple of small duffel bags there. There's a first aid kit here and a provision to store the jack. And this is how you actually close the front, and it gets closed completely thanks to the hydraulic struts there. And then you have the LED matrix headlamp, and there are 4 DRLs here, which of course double up as indicators there. And then you have the lovely styling here, which actually distinguishes the Taycan from the rest of the breed there. Front parking sensors of course, but what's actually shocking is you'll have to pay a couple of lakh rupees to get the front camera in this car. So the Taycan has one of the most gorgeous looking side profiles there, looks lovely from every bit of it. But what's actually interesting is, say I have this key here, and if I wish to enter the car here, all I need to do is keep my hand below this particular flush door handles, and the actually door handles welcome me there. And let's take a quick tour of what are there in the side elements of the Taycan. First things first, what is very interesting is you have 245, 45, R20 alloy here, but surprisingly the rear tire is slightly wider, but the profile is lesser. The reason being, rear wheel drive cars need a wider tire at the rear for better traction, so that they don't wheel spin, which is pretty common in rear wheel drive cars there. And then what's another interesting part is, all you have to do is just left swipe like this for the charging port to open in the Taycan, which is so damn cool, and then swipe right to restore it back there. You have the electric badging here just to remind you that you are driving a Porsche, but still you are being slightly kinder to the environment there. Of course, turn indicators on the ORVMs with the camera for the 360-degree camera aid. So talking about the rear of the Taycan, this same old iconic classic timeline design of the Porsche has been retained here. And if there's something to actually observe here, you can see that the Porsche branding is enclosed inside this lovely gloss glass finish, which looks very cool. And you have the Taycan badging here. So another cool part is the spoiler can actually be raised a bit to wash. However, we have seen in some cars that you press the button and the spoiler comes up. That doesn't happen in the Taycan. It's completely automated. But in case you want to clean up the spoiler, you can raise it slightly and you can clean it completely. And then you have the reverse camera just as expected, with a couple of parking sensors at the rear. So talking about the ground clearance, you do get 126 millimeters of ground clearance as standard in this Taycan. You can see the bottle here for reference. It's exactly the height of this particular bottle. But however, there might be some conditions where you feel that you need more ground clearance, especially these unscientific large speed breakers in our country there. And that's the reason Porsche has decided to address this with the form of air suspension. As you can see here, the air suspension lifts the car up by 30 millimeters. And unconventionally, generally I've seen that the boot opener is placed near the license plate, because that would be far too low, because the stance of the car is already low. Porsche has actually decided to place that here. Press this and the boot opens up. It's of course an electrically releasable boot, but the thing is, there is a spare tire here which eats up most of the space, which makes the boot slightly impractical. So if you have to stuff anything, you'll have the front trunk there, and then you have little space here, and apart from that, I think you'll have to just keep it in the second row of cabin there. So once you step inside the Taycan, you immediately realize that it's going to be very futuristic interiors, because everything is completely dominated by the touchscreen. There's not even a single physical button in this car. In fact, even the AC vent control is through touchscreens, which I'll get into shortly. So starting off with, you have a 16.8-inch driver cockpit, which is actually curved, and it is very cool. You have all the basic necessities that you want, including a G-force meter. There's a speedometer here, there's a tachometer. I mean, any kind of warnings. For example, if the tire is inflated, it will tell you by how many PSIs the tire is inflated. Everything is taken care of in the center stage there, everything that a driver would ever need. And of course, you have this lovely steering wheel here. No flat bottom, but it looks absolutely incredible in terms of the quality that it offers. There's a drive mode selector here. It's very helpful and easy to use when you're driving the car. The quality of stack switches, everything is of course top notch. You have memory seats here, 3 memory seat functions here. Everything feels very nice and built to last. But what's actually kind of extra special is you have 2 more touchscreens here, one which can be operated from the passenger side, which is again an accessory just like the Porsche things, and then you have an 8.3-inch touchscreen here for the climate controls. Basically, you can set the climate controls for various seats, the left, right, everything, including the ventilation options which is there in the seats. And then you have 2 cup holders which are nicely dominated here. There is a storage space here which is deep enough but not extremely deep or something. Porsche being Porsche did not want to go the non-minimalistic and classic way. That's why you have the proper analog clock there, which looks so classy in this world of modern tech here. Auto dimming IRVM, of course. But what's quite interesting is the seats are extremely supportive, especially the front seats. I found the rear seats to be slightly firm, which we'll get into shortly, but the front seats are very nice and supportive. So when you actually sit in this particular sports seat, which is an accessory, you can see that the road is completely visible from here. The Porsche Taycan has some really cool edges on the front of the bonnet, which makes you get that extra perfect judgment whenever you need it. You have a large glass roof in this car, and it cannot be open. In fact, even there are no curtains in this particular sunroof. If you pay extra, Porsche is going to let you have some patterns and designs there, but again you'll have to pay good amount of extra money for that. Nevertheless, it's a proper glass roof there. So talking about the screens here, you get the left screen, which is a passenger screen, which gets most of the functions as a driver, but it does not include completely everything. But the right side screen actually includes everything that the driver would ever need, including the drive mode, the various drive modes that are there: sports, sport plus, normal, and of course the range mode for that extra juiciness in the range. And then you have the chassis which can be stiffened up even from the control here. And then you have the recuperation level, which can be set off, on, or auto. There is no level 1, level 2, level 3 regions that we have seen in other cars. And then what is quite interesting is there is the electric sports sound mode, jahan pe, since this is an EV, you can get the fake sound of a normal car from that particular sound here. Then that's about it. You have the various strip details. Then talking about the comfort, you can set the ambient lights, which are just 8 ambient lights, no 64 ambient lights. And then you have the driver, passenger settings for seats and whatnot. I won't get too much into the details right now in the interest of time, but this has everything that you need to ensure in a car worth 2 crore rupees, including Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So there's this sports chrono mode which highlights the start and stop time, just in case you want to use your Porsche Taycan for the performance oriented roles. So this is the reverse camera of the Porsche Taycan. Very clear, of course, as expected. You get a 360-degree camera with all the details you would ever need to park this car. But what's actually quite interesting is press this button here and the reverse camera actually gets washed using a proper washer there. This is so cool in dusty environments. So the first thing that you instantly realize when you come behind the Taycan is you get a complete glass roof, which is so evident from here, and this is the largest glass roof I have ever seen, and it looks fantastic, mind-blowing literally. You have the rear center armrest, which is of course expected, nothing fancy there. But what is kind of interesting here is the seats actually cover up the entire view for the rear passengers. There is a slight bummer here, and apart from that, it's pretty decent. The legroom is pretty decent. The underthigh support isn't very manageable as such, but it should be okay. However, if I have one issue, it is that these seats are slightly upright and they are quite firm. They're actually quite firm, just like some of the Volkswagen cars race seats that we have seen in recent times. But thankfully you do get a touchscreen here which has the AC controls, the similar AC controls like the front passengers. Everything can be controlled here. However, accessing the type C charging ports is going to be quite difficult because you'll have to search for it for some time, and then only then you can actually plug in the wire there. You do not get sunblind standard as such, but there's a 14 speaker Bose music system which sounds absolutely rocking. It's phenomenal. So we're driving the Porsche Taycan right now, and first things first, this has a 79.4 kilowatt hour battery, which means that the realistic range should be somewhere around 350 kilometers as claimed by Porsche, but I would suggest that you should have something around 270 to 300 in mind when you're planning the long distance road trips. That is very important. So the motor produces 326 HP of power, and in the overboost mode it can produce up to 408 HP of power, which is actually incredible. This is just the normal Taycan. We're not even getting to the Taycan turbo. This is very powerful in terms of the way this car actually drives. There are various drive modes in this particular car, and apart from that, the steering has typical Porsche dynamics. The steering is very good. It feels superb to hold. The steering weighs up incredibly, especially in the Sport Plus mode. Things get a lot better. You won't be disappointed at all, no matter what. That's how the Porsche steering have been, and the same thing continues even in the Taycan. In spite of this being an EV, Porsche ensure that the driving dynamics aren't compromised in any way. The acceleration is brutal. Actually, it's very fast. The 0 to 100 km per hour claimed time frame is just 5.4 seconds, and that is very evident because this car literally flies, especially in the aggressive modes there. Although enthusiasts might seriously miss paddle shifters in a Porsche, but there are different recuperation levels for your energy, which can be either automated or it can be left on or it can be switched off. There are no level 1, level 2, level 3 regions as such in this particular car. The braking power comes from 4 disc. Of course, the braking is fantastic. I mean, there have been some situations where we had to kind of brake slightly aggressively, but the brakes did not disappoint at all, and this car screams performance from the word go. So talking about AC performance, you do get completely glass roof in this particular car, which actually kind of dilutes the cooling effectiveness of the AC, but that's nothing much to complain because after over a period of time everything gets very sorted and the cabin feels pleasant and cool. It's not bone chilling, don't get me wrong, but it's more than manageable in most part of our countries.
The battery has a gross capacity of 79.2 kWh and can charge at up to 225 kW. We charged it using a 120 kW charger, and it took about 45 minutes to juice it up using the DC charger from 8% to 95%. The practical range can be expected north of 300 km when driven sedately. The handling too is quite magical and grips itself quite well in straight line. The 2-speed gearbox is focused on optimizing initial acceleration since this is an EV, and it takes roughly about 5.4 seconds for it to brisk sprintly to 100 km per hour mark. The ride quality is phenomenal, and it's way better than what one would expect in a car like a Taycan EV. Thanks to the adaptive air suspensions, which also raise the height of the car by 30mm, which should protect the underbelly, especially in our nasty, unscientific, huge speed breakers. Where the Taycan truly shines and proves itself to be very Porsche is through tough, tight corners. The steering wheel weighs up excellently and it is absolutely perfect, just like a typical Porsche there. And it does justice.
There's no second thought that the Porsche Taycan is the best EV I have ever driven in my life, and considering that the way this car looks, there's no second thought that you might end up going to a nearest Porsche dealership just in case you want to pick this. However, you will have to be aware of the customization options that the Porsche offers, because not everything that you see here is gold, because you will have to shell out a premium for each of the customization options. In fact, if you pick all the customization options that the Taycan actually has, you will end up spending exactly the same amount as the price of the car. Yes, welcome to the Porsche world there. But that's it. If you're looking for a car which looks drop dead gorgeous, which is tech loaded and is actually practical to carry around 4 people in proper comfort, this is the answer to your question. If you guys like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow us on Instagram. Take care and drive safe.